Now, this is where the rubber really hits the road. Probably not the right analogy for boats, but never mind. When you put your boat in the water, that's when you find out what's really happening. So I've had it in the trim tank here. I've been balancing it, getting it looking pretty good, pretty happy with it all. I took it to the swimming pool and had a 50-meter lane and put the boat in the water, pushed forward on the throttle, and it stopped. Everything went off after about 3 seconds, and I realized pretty quickly I'd blown a fuse, and that's because I'm running a LiPo and two direct drive 555 motors, and they just blew the fuse. So I had to carry the boat back to the car, had to go and get a 40 amp fuse, take it home, pull it all apart, hardwire it in, and bring it back to the pool. Okay, it's going to work this time. This time, off it went down the pool. Good clip of speed. I had absolutely no control. The rudder on this thing is hopeless. Now, the next day, I took it down to the boat park where the club is, and there was no one there hardly because there was something else on. And I took the boat out there and just kept it on the surface the whole time and ran it, and discovered that when it began, because the rudder is not following the propellers are on either side and the rudder's right in the middle. When you turn the rudder, you get no effect at all for a little while, and then it begins to turn, and as the stern begins to swing, I think that then the propeller thrust begins to be touching what I mean is as it begins to turn, it starts to turn more sharply. Very difficult to control. So anyway, that's one thing. But going back to the swimming pool again, I had trouble controlling it. But the other thing was, I thought it was the subtech valve wasn't working properly because the boat was continually sinking. I'd empty the tank and it would just fill again very quickly. Till I pulled it apart and realised what was happening, which was that the motor in the pump, the two-way pump, is so strong it pops the end cap off. It fills the tank and plop, and then the water comes in and you can't stop it. It's not complete. It's not entirely open because the end cap is still sort of in place, but the O-ring isn't in anymore. So the water's rushing in. It's sinking. Bloody disaster. So I took it. I ended up getting it on the bottom at one point. Had to get a kid to come and lift it out. You know, never think it's going to be easy. So the next day, I took it, as I said before, I took it to the pond, and it was really looking pretty nice on the surface, but it's very clear that it's bow heavy, and I need that the Nautilus has got an angle on it like this, so I've got to fix that. And this is where submarines become counterintuitive, because what I'm needing to do to make it bow light is to take the balsa out of the bow and put foam in the stern. How crazy is that? But look at this. Here's the boat, like that, a bit whale-like. There's the water line. I have in the bow, I have balsa, block of balsa. I also have some foam in the stern. Now, the interesting thing about a submarine is, where is the foam? Is it above the water line or is it below? Now, you would think that that would make the boat nicely, I could balance that nicely. That would be the case if it were not a submarine. But we don't balance, we don't trim it for being on the surface. We trim it for being under the surface. And all of this balsa in here wants to rise to the surface, as does this foam here, but it's nowhere near as strong as there. So you end up putting a block of lead in there, and you put some lead there, and you get the whole thing balancing, and then you fill the ballast, you empty the ballast tank, and you find that the water is a bit like that. It's a bit low in the bow. So what do you have to do? What you have to do is take all that balsa out of there above the waterline and put some more foam in here above the waterline. What does that do? It means that when you trim the boat under the water, there's less flotation in the bow, so you can take some of this lead out, make it quite light, perhaps. There's more flotation here, so you have to put some more lead in here. And then when it comes to the surface, what matters on the surface is how much lead is in there, not how much foam. And so there's less lead there, so it should be like that. It should be nice. So that is exactly what we've done. So I've dug all this out with a Dremel, with the grinder, and now I'm preparing this, obviously, to put some more foam above the water line in the stern, right in that little section there. This is great. I mean, you would never think that this is going to look reasonable, but there you go. It doesn't really expand to 4 times the size, I've decided. It's more like 1.5 to 2. Anyway, however that's going to be, we're just going to hold that on. I'll put some weights on this and leave it. Now this is the next day, pulling it off, and the result is very nice indeed. That's really smooth. It's quite firm. I've done the no more gaps trick on it once again, and now I've obviously coated it. Now I'm putting an extension onto the rudder. That metal I'm using is just some aerial tubing I've crushed flat in the vise, and I'm using 2.5mm holes here with threads and nuts. Get these stainless steel, you get the stainless steel nuts and stuff off and bolts off eBay. That's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that because you're not going to see it at all. It could possibly bind with a hydroplane. I'll just have to see how this goes. But I think that's got enough throw on it now to have some effect. Hi, so what I'm doing here is I've loaded up the Retract script into the Arduino only, and I just want to test this, and I'm just oh yes, so I've now done the Retract. I'm just going to open the planes up, and it works quite quickly, this Retract script. It's not slow, and I'm pretty happy with the clearances there. I've been working on these. Its position in the hull just needs to be adjusted a little bit, because even though those screws are countersunk on the other side, they tend to be, this is quite difficult to get dead right. Okay, so here we are now using the hydros like that. That's okay. Might adjust that because this one is a bit lower. That needs to be adjusted. The actual Retract is not all that good either. So there's a little bit of work to be done just to get these dead right, but it's worth doing it because once they're connected properly, they'll be terrific. So now we upload the Nautilus script. See the lights flickering as it uploads the script. And that's it. Done. Done, done, done. Now I'm doing something that really is useful. That little tab, when it goes up and down, can catch wires. So I've just bent a little bit of flashing around that bit of brass. I've got some hot glue. This is very temporary, but it's just going to protect that in case any wires get in the way as it slides up and down, because that is very, very annoying. So we've got the boat in the water yet again. I'm very interested to see how this goes. And sure enough, even though I've taken lead out of the bow, it's bow heavy. Exactly what I wanted. So I've taken more lead now out of the bow. That was very exciting, the fact that it was still bow heavy after I'd taken water out, after I'd taken lead out. So now there's even more lead out of the bow. I'm just filling the tank. Once again, the piston and the trim tanks are all in the right place. Pretty happy with everything. You can see the stern is quite high because it's got that extra foam in there. just pushing it down because it tends to get a bit of air in there, but yeah, it's still bow stern light. So what I'm doing now is adding lead, little strips of lead, and just getting it so that it's sitting in the water as close to perfect as can be. And honestly, I'm getting it really, really dead right. I'm pretty happy with this. Oh yeah, you've got to take the time to do this, because when you get this right, then everything else that adjusts in the boat will work so much better. That is lovely. This is very exciting. This is the point where you know you've got the boat right. The piston is nearly fully withdrawn at this point, so there's plenty of room in that to push the boat up. So I'm now using the surfacing routine. Up she comes. I'll turn the pump on, and we're now going to see how the boat is going to sit in the water for real, and the bow's going to be a lot higher. So now we can try it out in some real water.